Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Society, Art and Science, a watch collection. Today I'm going to be talking about different kinds of watches that collectors can collect. There are different kinds of things such as a chronograph or a rattrapante or a diver, different kinds of things like that. I was trying to say, okay, well, how can we sort of put them in some kind of order where we can take a look at it? So anyway, so here goes on that. Before I get started, though, I was looking at a watch that Hermes won a prize for a few years ago. It's a Quatre Mine 2P. It was a calendar watch. They won the calendar prize for it at the Grand Prix. And I was reading about it, and they were going on about their designers and how they did this and how they did that, and then they had a caliber. They're talking about the caliber. What did they call it? I got it here. I think they call it a caliber H1950. Well. And they referred to it as manufactured Hermes H1950. Well, what it is, it's a Vaucher VMF 5401. It's got and it's a neat movement. I think I ordered one. This guy was getting a bunch, and I hope to have one or one of those kinds of things. So they're expensive. They're over $1,000 a pop. So they're really a good movement. They're an expensive movement. And then on top of that, they had the basic movement that does the hands and so forth. And then on top of that, they had this Agenhor module that took care of all of these whirligigs that they had on the watch, which the calendar watch. They had dual time and months and day and everything on this watch. Really a cool watch, by the way, too. I like the looks of it. There is no mention of Agenhor or Vaucher. Okay, now the company Hermes is famous for its handbags and scarves. Hermes is very well respected in the luxury business. But, you know, you mention Hermes, and a lot of people say, oh, that's a fashion watch or something like that, because most of the fashion watches they're either quartz or something else, if but they're not really good movements. And this sort of led me to this conclusion. Watch companies are so inured to, I don't want to say fibbing, but I think they're a little deceptive. But here's the crazy thing. It's to their own disadvantage when it comes to having a movement like Vaucher and a module like Agenhor. It's true that Hermes owns 25% of Vaucher, and I suppose they could say, yeah, well, we've got but the Hermes 1950 movement, I would rather see them advertise it. Here's a new Hermes watch, and we got a Vaucher movement and an Agenhor module. Man, I'd go for that 10 times, 100 times quicker than I'd go for, oh, we got a Hermes movement. I mean, what do they know about movements? Leather and silk movement, maybe. Anyway, just sort of a mini rant that, for their own good, not to blow up, advertise these other companies, but for their own good. Cartier, quite a few years ago, had a movement by THA, which was a company that was founded by F.P. Journe and a couple other guys, right before they went off and they became famous on their own. And of course, Cartier's not going to tell you what's in there. They don't, they'll say, they'll give it a Cartier name or something like that. It's sort of like, it's bad enough when they put in a cheat movement and not let it, give it a phony baloney name, but it's just plain stupid when you have a really excellent, expensive movement in your watch and then you give it a phony baloney name. All right, enough of that. But, oh, by the way, too, these might be really good chances to find an excellent watch at a good price by their doing that, because people aren't going to be lining up to get a Hermes movement in their watch, but they would for a Vasseur and especially Agenor too. Okay, enough of that. Well, the first group of watches is probably the most common, and this is the sports group, and one of the major features, I suppose, of sports watches is a chronograph. And sort of one of the most iconic chronographs is the Speedmaster Professional Moon Watch. Now, this is the one that you wind up and you flip it over on the back and you can see the movement. This is to me, is one of the coolest watches around for a sports watch. Another kind of watch that sort of fits in this category is the military field watch. The one I have here is a Hamilton khaki field. This, good old banging around good watch. Another one's a motorsport. Now this one, the one I found that I liked is a C1 Morgan three-wheeler chronometer, mainly because I like Morgan three-wheelers. But more than that, this is an in-house Christopher Ward watch, and it has, I think it's SH21, I think that's the name of their movement, something like that. But it's got this particular one, they're having a bunch of watches on sale, and this one I think was around $1,500. I thought, wow, that's really cool. I have a hard time reading black dials though, unless they have this bright white contrast with it. But that I thought was sort of a cool watch for a motorsport. Now, motorsport can be anything that they want it to be. So, yeah, it's just a name for a sports watch. I guess sports watches are more informal. Some more are the diver. The Submariner is probably one of the most iconic diver watches, and people who have them oftentimes refer to themselves as desk divers, not going out. The same thing with the pilot watches. Here's a pilot, Zenith Pilot Type 20. Now, real pilots probably wouldn't use a watch like that. I like the looks of that watch with the great big old crown on it. Those big crowns had a practical reason back in the old days with the open cockpits, and they had these big gloves on. They had to wind them. But today they don't make a lot of sense. What's more important is having a GMT on it so you can set up Zulu time. But pilot watches, they have all kinds of different kinds of that. Another one that is a maritime watch, which is, they have a lot of different ones. The Yachtmaster 2 and this one in particular, the Ulysse Nardine Marine Regatta, they have a function that does a countdown. So they have their the thing that serves like a chronograph hand, but it goes backwards until the beginning of the race, and it starts going forward. Really, another one of those kinds of things. And the reason I'm talking about these things is that in collecting watches, we tend to talk about brand or craftsmanship and all of these other kinds of things. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun just to look at the different kinds, and I look at my collection, and you get an idea really quickly of saying, oh, gee, they're all the same. Maybe you ought to take a look at some different ones. Now, in addition to regular sports watches, there are luxury sports watches. And I don't know anybody who participates in a sport, and unless they're watching a game on TV or something. And these are the luxury sport. And, the Audemars Piguet with the Royal Oak, and the Vacheron Constantin with Overseas, and the Patek Philippe Nautilus. There's some other ones that are luxury sports watches as well, but these are sort of the three most iconic of them. I used to have an overseas, and I don't anymore, but I liked it while I had it. All right, so that's another type of watch. Now, this next group is a name that I sort of created to talk about a watch that you sort of wear every day. It's an everyday watch where you go to work, but it's not a dress watch. It's just sort of like you're gonna go to work. You want a nice watch, and off you go. And generally, I think an office watch, you have the time on it, and then a little date window, or as Seiko Presage has, is a little hand date. And the Seiko Presage, Girard-Perregaux, Laredo, and then the Rolex Datejust are three examples of what you'd have for what I call an office watch. These are nice watches, but they're not overly fancy. They're nice, but they're not killer fancy watches. And these have all different kinds of levels. One of the things about office watches is that one of the more and more common, you'll see people with their Apple watches or some other kind of digital watch having perfectly good time, but not exactly. I think they're almost more like a type of men's jewelry is a nice watch to wear. So you go and you show up and you look nice, especially if you have to wear a coat and tie or something like that. All right. Now, this group of watches is sort of the executive suite watch. The first one is an Endeavor Tourbillon. I wanted to mention Tourbillon because this is a feature, a mechanical feature of watches, that's to increase the constant force on the watch, and especially when turning in all different directions. But at the same time, you have something like this particular H. Moser, and you got this really gorgeous watch. But it's a little different. It's not. It has sort of the features of it is more on I think the beauty of the watch. You can glance at that and get a pretty good idea what time it is, but not quite the kind of time you have on some of the more exacting ones. The Wooten Lannon Vinci 8 is another one that these watches really are a statement about the person wearing them. That's why I call the executive suite watches. And finally, the Lang & Hein Georg. This watch is just sort of there's a certain kind of simple elegance to it, and flip it over on the back, and the movement is just like just about all Lang & Heins have this fantastic movement. I have on my H. Moser Henry double hairspring. I'm retired, so I can wear whatever I want, whenever I want, and so that's a little different. In professional areas, most professionals I've met in the medical and academic areas, they could care less about their watches, at least during their working time. On the other hand, attorneys, they are much more aware of them. They're very aware of watches, at least the ones I know. We're more so than some of the other professions. Okay, now some more annual and perpetual calendars. This is, I don't have either one, and some that I've been looking at or thinking about. You have the Patek Philippe, which is really interesting because it's a regulator in addition to being an annual calendar. This was a watch that they took out of production and then they put back again. I'm not sure why. They did. Next to it is Oxen Junior Perpetual Calendar. This is done by a guy who just like super brilliant. There's in order to the Patek Philippe Perpetual Calendar. I forgot how many. It's like 200 or 300 parts just for the calendar. Whereas this one did it with nine parts. A really brilliant timepiece. The Villeray, the Blancpain Villeray Perpetual. This watch is an interesting combination of things. You have at 6 o'clock you have the moon phase, and then you have the day of the week, and then up at the top you have the month name, and then you have at 3 o'clock you have the 31 days of the month. So it goes to the month, you can see it, and then you can see everything from that. This is one that I like the looks of it. It's just, for a perpetual calendar, I think it's a pretty cool watch. One of the problems with most perpetual calendars is they're extremely expensive. One of my favorite is the H. Moser, and for setting, I don't think anything can beat it, but it's very expensive. Okay, now this one is some neat, unique features. A rattrapante, what a rattrapante is, they call them split seconds. So basically, what you can do is that you can have dual chronograph timing. If when the first time you click it, one of them goes off, and then the second time you click it, the other one. So you can compare timing. I have a mono rattrapante, which is sort of the first time you click it, with a chronograph function goes off, then you click and hold it, and it'll stay there. And then when you want to start the second one, you let go, and it jumps forward to it. It doesn't work too well. Another one that I have here I really like is it's a Gallet Regulator Natural Escapement by Larent Ferrier. And this is one that I really like it, but it's like, I don't know, $30,000-$40,000. It's just like, wow, I can't afford that. And so I got a $200 one. This is my my regulator. And the reason I wanted to have a regulator was like, wouldn't it be cool to have a regulator, but I want to spend all that money on it. And so I got one I liked. This has got a Siegel regulator movement in it. And it works great. It's been fantastic so far. And then another one is a moon phase. One of the ones, the one I have is a Christian Vanderclaw, and it's got the little picture of the moon down at the bottom. But the ones that are really good ones, and they are expensive, are the what they call the real moon jour, and they have a little three-dimensional moon in there, and it's really interesting. I gotta tell you though, moon phase, they're sort of cool in a way, but I'm not sure. I've been they're just there, so you can tell the phases of the moon, I guess. All right. Now this one is some different types of constant force, and by constant force, these are ways in which mechanical watches, and they can have a constant force from the unwinding of the mainspring. That's what they're all about. One way, the resonance, what they have is that it started with two swinging pendulums, and working together, they were able to coordinate two different times. Whether that's constant force or not, I don't know. But F.P. Journe and a few other companies have them, and they're interesting watches. So, another one is Fusee and Chain. Now, this is an older constant force, and this particular one is from A. Longa und Sunda, And this particular one is by Richard Lang Pour Les which is a whole series of watches they call Pour Les and they all have fusee and chain along with any other thing. Now, my very favorite constant force mechanism is a remontoir d'égalité. This is something that basically every 8 seconds it rewinds this little remontoir, and that's so that you can keep the force constant. The thing with the spring is that initially it's got lots of power, and then at the end it sort of gets less so, and so this messes up the time or the constant force. Now, the final group of watches that I want to talk about is travel and GMT. Jaeger-LeCoultre's geophysic universal time is what I call a world time. I guess that's sort of a general name for it. And around the inside the bezel, they have all these different major cities and the different countries, and then there's one of the dials is dark and the other one is light, so that you can tell whether it's day or night. If you have dual time, that's important to know about. The Chopard LUC GMT1, this one is a very clean GMT. And one of the major purpose that I see, or one of the main functions that can be done with this, can be set to universal time, or Greenwich Mean Time, so something close to that. I think it was called Universal Coordinated Time, I think is what the real name is, and it's pretty close to GMT time. And this has a big extra hand, and it simply shows the time in another place. The over on the far right is a toric Parmigiani Fleurier toric hemispheres retrograde. This is a fabulous watch. It has I have the non-retrograde version. That's a Tonda hemispheres. What they have is that they have 2 different times that if you set the top crown there, you'll set the little dial at the top, and you can set it to any time you want. Places like India are sort of offset a half hour from the GMT time, and some other countries have the same thing. China, which is interesting, they have 1 time zone. They must cross at least 3 time zones, but they said, well, we'll just have one, make life easy for everyone. So they did. But what's interesting about this, it has 2 little subdials for day and night on it. And boy, you can if you're sort of away, you can find out whether somebody's in bed or not. The other 2 watches do the same thing with a little dark and light outlines outside of the timing aspects of the dial. Okay, the thing about this, what I did in picking these, I wanted to get something mechanical, and there are a lot of just incredible number of different watches you can do that. But what I want to encourage you, you say, boy, I'd like to have a moon phase, for example. There are moon phases in so many different watches, all different pricing areas. This one wasn't too expensive because it's made of stainless steel, and when I say not too expensive, it's not crazy expensive, I'll put it that way. But you don't have to pay tens or $20,000s of dollars. In fact, you don't even have to pay. You can get one for under $1,000 with a moon phase on it. Or in this case, my regulator is $200 and brand new from a company called Perpetual in China, and it, like I said, it works just fine. But it's fun in collecting I think it's important for us to see how many tricks, how many things that a mechanical watch can do. And the thing that's amazing about them is that the whole thing is pushed by this the power from a mainspring. And at least to me, that's one of the most fun things about it. And of course, talking with other collectors about what they find interesting. Okay, well, listen, I may have I probably left out all kinds of other different kinds of things. And if you can think of something in the comments section, let me know. And until Sunday, when we have our next collection review, which I think is really a very interesting one. This is Bill Sanders for Watch Outside, the art and science of watch collection. And as always, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like.